Welcome to Matter of Action. I'm Wayne Marrow. Along with me today is Gary Benoit, the editor and publisher of the New American Magazine. And I invited Gary today because there's been an interest in this thing called socialism. And this month we have this whole magazine dedicated to the topic of socialism. So Gary, welcome. And
Thank you very much.
Really interested to hear a little bit about this magazine, and for the people listening to what we have in it, it's really sort of a mystery. As I said you earlier on, they think everything is free in socialism. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the magazine and then maybe some of the topics that we covered in the New American Magazine.
Of course, a lot of people do think that everything is free with socialism, and that's why it sounds like a great thing. But in fact, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and government cannot create wealth. And to illustrate that point, with a special report that we put together, we show a jackpot, we show a slot machine, and it says free. But actually, what you get is really not free, because what you get has to come from other people.
That's right. Always the case. Yeah, I saw some of the articles we cover, like healthcare is going free, and then we have socialism sound bites, which is always misleading. You know, for example, free green energy. You have ones here: national health care and corruption and incentives, and it's always been a mystery to many because they can't really define socialism, can they?
That's absolutely correct, and that's actually where this special report begins.
Yeah.
It begins with the definition of socialism. It points out that this involves big government. It involves control. In order to take from some, in order to give to others, that requires government force. It requires the power of the guns, so to speak, and jails and whatnot. And so what you have is this huge mechanism to distribute the wealth. And a lot of people think that mechanism will be used to distribute the wealth fairly, but what happens in practice is just the opposite.
Right.
What happens is that mechanism that distributes the wealth controls the wealth and ultimately controls the people and becomes all-powerful.
Yeah, a good example of that in the magazine, I think you pointed out Scandinavia. Wasn't that one of the country, or Denmark? Maybe you could speak to that for a few minutes, because that was a great example.
Right. Well, Denmark is a good example, because when we talk about socialism, oftentimes people who say that they are democratic socialists, they will say that they believe in soft socialism. They don't believe in the socialism that occurred in the Soviet Union or the socialism that's occurring today in Venezuela. So they will point to Scandinavia. They will point to Denmark. And we have a 2-page article regarding that in the special report called Do It Like Denmark. Yeah. And when you put that under a microscope, it's not working very well either. And if that were taken to its ultimate conclusion, what we would have, as we've seen elsewhere where socialism has been tried, is all-powerful government and the people losing their freedoms.
And that's always what happens. I worked in Europe for 3 years, and I saw that living in socialist countries, it never really happens. But nothing's free. And besides, with more government control, it gets to be really expensive. I remember paying almost $7 a gallon for gasoline, and that was like 15 years ago. And that's about even a little bit more than that now.
Sure. And, of course, right now you're talking about economics, but it also becomes political, because ultimately not only does the economy goes down the tubes, but politically freedoms go down the tubes as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because you cover a pretty wide variety. You know, the economics and socialism saving America. I know that's the Bernie Sanders and mantra is we're going to save the United States with democratic socialism. And, of course, as I mentioned, a lot of the college students that I see as I travel in some of the corner areas that work in the field, they can't really define that term at all.
And that's where we start off with the definition of socialism with our cover story. Yeah. And that cover story, by the way, gives a number of examples as to how socialism works in practice. A lot of people think that socialism is a good thing because they see it as being equitable, they see it as being fair. The very first example that we start off in our cover story concerns a college professor who decides that he's going to implement socialism within his classroom. And so instead of giving everybody grades based upon their abilities or what they've exhibited in the work that they do. He decides instead to give them an average grade. Mm-hmm. And the question is that fair? And we think when people are presented with examples like that, they will decide it's not fair.
No. And there's no incentive to do better, is there?
No, there's not. And so if the professor were to do that, obviously what would happen over time is the overall grade would go down. Mm-hmm. Socialism is concerned with how to allocate the wealth. Right. Supposedly allocating the wealth fairly, although it never works that way in practice. The government always ends up having the greater share, and those people who are connected to the government, those people who control the government. But it's concerned with allocation of the existing wealth, and that economic pie shrinks because there's no incentive to produce more wealth.
And we can see that in Venezuela today, for example, right?
Exactly. But if instead you had free enterprise, the wealth would increase.
Yeah.
And under free enterprise, even the smaller pieces of the pie would be greater than what you would have left with the shrinking pie under socialism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a matter of fact, in my travels, we actually see people from Venezuela, and mm-hmm. they are afraid what they left. They see the same thing coming here to the United States, creeping socialism. It sounds really good, and it's not true,
right?
Because it never happened. So now we have, as I mentioned, in Venezuela, you took a very high GMP producing country with oil, and now it's a third world at best nation. And you can see the same setup here in the United States, where the only people who benefit from that is the ruling class, the oligarchy. So they get rid of the middle class. That's basically what happens to socialism. Someone said to me that socialism is slow walk Marxism. That's what it is.
I agree with you completely. Yeah. And in the United States, obviously we have our own problems, but when you look at what is causing those problems, what you see is an increase of socialism in the United States. Yeah. And then the problems that have been caused by socialism, those problems are now used as a pretext to have more socialism, which, of course, is going to make the situation even worse.
Right. More and more control, more and more government. So interesting about the magazine. So is the magazine available on the newsstands, or how does? And I know there's a website associated with it, Gary. So how can people listening and seeing us get more information about the New American Magazine, get one in their hands?
Well, we do have a website. It is called thenewamerican.com. Uh-huh. So it's just the name of the magazine.com. Yeah. And if people were to go there, they could click on an ad that we have there to order this socialism issue. Also, if people have the socialism special report, we do have a stitching card where people can order in quantity. Mm-hmm. And by ordering in quantity, you can greatly reduce the unit price, which makes it a lot easier mm-hmm. for distribution.
And it's bi-monthly, correct?
It's twice a month.
Twice a month. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It also is included, if you're a member of the John Birch Society, it's included in your membership as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
What a deal, huh?
Right. It is a great deal, but I should point out, though, that the special report was not put together with the member of the John Birch Society in mind, so much as it was put together with the person in mind, and particularly young people uh-huh. who have been beguiled regarding socialism. Mm-hmm. Because young people in particular, people in college, basically all they've heard is that socialism is a good thing. Yeah. They have not heard the other side of the story. Right. And so the purpose of this special report is to present the other side of this story. So as you go through this special report, we take it step by step.
Mm-hmm. I see that. They need the truth, right?
Right.
So you can get this magazine. We have a website, thenewamerican.com. Mm-hmm. You can get the magazine. You can call 920-749-3780 if you want to order the copy through our customer mm-hmm. service group. Or you can go to the website and download articles. And as a teaser for next month, we have China making our medicine. So if you guys listening and are seeing this is another fantastic, hard-hitting area that we need to learn about. So this is Phenomenal Magazine. Gary, thank you so much. The members and our coordinators and people who are non-members really enjoy the magazine. It's not fake news, it's real news.
Well, it is real news.
And it's refreshing.
But I also want to commend the members and the pullers at the oars in the field, mm-hmm. because without them, what we're publishing would not matter.
Yeah, again, thanks so much, Gary. And until next time, keep birching. If you need to speak to a local coordinator, Mike Sawyer at 405-323-8639. Until next time, thank you.